What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. So, before I say anything else, I just want to say this first. Shout out to Christian Zim on Twitter for hashtagging me in one of his tweets. Thank you for that. And shout out to Chad. You know who you are, Chad. Okay, so I talked about this before in an earlier episode of Joe Winko Talk from year 2014, but I ended up taking it down for some reason. I don't really remember why, but I do remember this. No one was listening to the whole story, and no one was commenting on it either, and it kind of made me mad when people don't listen to what I'm talking about in Joe Winko Talk, or if they don't comment about what I'm talking about in Joe Winko Talk. I mean, the video did have comments, but it had a bunch of comments that had nothing to do with what I was talking about in the video. So, I'm going to talk about it again right now. So, I read a blog post a really long time ago, a couple years back. I still have it right now, because when I find something interesting, if I find an interesting blog post, what I do is I highlight it, copy it, paste it, and save it. But the blog post has been deleted because it's been a really long time. And it was a blog post about the Amityville house. So I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the Amityville house, but it's actually a haunted house in Long Island, New York. It's the house where the man murdered his whole entire family with a shotgun back in 1974, the DeFeo family. But before that, it never really was claimed to be haunted. Like, I remember reading that someone said it was built on Indian burial ground, and that's why it was cursed. But this blog post I read, it supposedly explains the origin of how the Amityville house actually became haunted, even before the whole 1974 murders. It's absolutely ridiculous, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Some random person wrote it, and I'm gonna just summarize it for you guys right now. Okay, so this was what they claim to be the true story of the Amityville house and how it became haunted. So there is this man named Elijah. He was living in Europe. He was this really rich and really wealthy man from Europe. He fell in love with this one woman who was kind of a tramp, and they had a daughter together, and he named her Clementine. But then his tramp wife, she ran away to the USA to become a stripper for some reason. But then Elijah was so heartbroken that his wife left him, but he still had his daughter Clementine, so he devoted all of his time to Clementine, and he spoiled her, and he gave her whatever she wanted, because he was really rich, and he was able to get her any toys she wanted, anything she wanted, and she eventually grew up, and she became like a really spoiled brat. So as she grew up, when she became a teenager, she fell in love with this one boy she met, and she really liked him and everything. But she thought, because she was so spoiled while she was younger, she believed that as she grew up, she could have whatever she wanted in life that easily. But the boy didn't like her at all because she was ugly. So then she became really angry and really depressed because the boy didn't like her because she was ugly. And then to cope with her depression, she began eating a lot of food. And people actually do this. When people get depressed, they actually do end up eating lots of food. So she was eating lots of food. Her dad knew about the whole situation, and he felt sorry for her. So he kept buying her lots of sweets, lots of candies, lots of cakes and chocolates and everything. And he eventually figured that they should move to the USA to start a new life, because he thought that would be better for her. But she kept eating lots of food and lots of candy and lots of chocolates. Eventually, over time, she became morbidly obese, and she became really fat. So he built her a huge house for her to easily move around in Long Island, New York. A huge house with open space so she could easily walk up and down the hallways, walk through the doorways, and get inside every room. This is how the Amityville house became created. That big house that he built was the Amityville house. So that was the house he built for his daughter because she loved her so much, and he made the house really big so she can fit inside of it and so she can move around in it. Because the Amityville house is a really big mansion if you actually go to it. But eventually, by the time they got to New York, she still kept eating food over and over again, and she became really, really fat, and didn't have the strength or energy to walk around or move at all. So she spent most of her days lying in bed, lounging around in bed, and what her father did was he hired maids to come in and take care of her and give her food and to feed her and everything, give her clothes and all that stuff, and he hired maids to take care of her. And her father had a lot of money, he was paying all the maids, but somehow he ended up dying of old. But eventually, after all this time passed, he ended up dying of old age. So then, the maids had no way of getting paid because he wasn't paying them at all. So the maids stopped coming back to the Amityville house, and they stopped coming back for Clementine. So eventually, they left Clementine, abandoned her in the house, and then no one would come to feed Clementine. Clementine did not know that her father was dead, and she did not know why all the maids left either. She didn't even know they left even. But then she was calling for food, she was hungry, but no maid was bringing her any food. So then, one night, according to this blog post, and according to this blog post legend, she got up out of the bed, and she was going to make her way downstairs to get herself some food to eat. While she was walking, she hasn't walked in a few years, so she was really clumsy and everything. She ended up falling down the stairs, and she died when she fell down the stairs. And then eventually, a few weeks later, some random person found her body inside the house. And now her ghost haunts the Amityville house. She didn't know that her father died. She thought her ghost still believes that her father abandoned her. So that's why she's really angry. And now she haunts the house. And now people who actually lived in the Amityville house, according to this blog post, the people who lived in the Amityville house, they claimed that every single night they'd hear something tumbling down the stairs, and it was her ghost tumbling down the stairs, because that's how she died. They'd always hear a high-pitched female voice screaming that she was hungry and screaming for someone to bring her food, and it was coming from the attic bedroom, which was actually her old bedroom. And also, the people who lived in the house reported that they had food missing from their refrigerator, and they would always find random wrappers of food laying out around the house. And it freaked a lot of people out. That's how this whole hype about the Amityville house being haunted, according to this blog post, that's how the whole hype about the Amityville house being haunted, that's how it started. That was the true story of the Amityville house. And also, I'm not sure if any of you guys know about this, but there is a suspicious room in the house with red walls in the basement. Everyone, in all the Amityville movies, everyone always says that red room in the basement, the secret, mysterious red room, they always say that was actually a torture chamber for Native Americans. But, according to this blog post, it wasn't a torture chamber at all. That is actually the red room where they kept all of Clementine's food, and that's actually the room where Clementine brings all of her food that she steals from the refrigerator, and she eats it all down there. And the people who lived in the house claimed that they saw wrappers of food all sprawled out in the red room and all piled up. And it freaked a lot of people out. And her ghost is not friendly. She's really angry, and she blames her father, but she also blames everyone else who comes and lives in that house. And she doesn't want anyone else there. She wants her father to come back. And she's really mad, and she's wondering why her father abandoned her. And when I read that blog post, yeah, I thought the story was ridiculous. But if that blog post is really true, I actually think it's really sad. I mean, all of this just because some guy didn't like her at all? And then she really thinks that her father abandoned her? Her father loved her. He was doing everything he can to make her happy. And now she never will know that at all. Well, overall, that whole story is absolutely ridiculous, and the authenticity of it is quite questionable. But it's pretty interesting to think about. So, can you guys please comment and share your thoughts on that whole story? What do you think? Do you really think the Amityville house is haunted by a morbidly obese girl who thought her father abandoned her? By a heartbreaking morbidly obese woman who thought her father abandoned her? Please let me know in the comments section. And for all of you guys who can't wait for it, my new episode of The Rising Dead, it's on its way. Just be patient for it. I haven't started filming it yet because I've been busy with some final exam stuff, but I will start filming it soon. And also, do not forget to post more articles on my wiki site about the people I talk about in Joe Winko Talk. I'll have the link to it in the description. Also, voice actors who voice acted in my Sims 2 horror films, you can post articles about yourself too. And about the characters in my Sims 2 horror films. As long as they're not from the Knifed series, and The Rising Dead. But any other characters from any other series of horror films I made, you can type about them on my wiki site. So please make sure to do that. I'll have the link in the description. And don't forget to like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and follow me on Tumblr. And that's it. So, peace out, people.